HOA locked my kids in the clubhouse. Didn't know I'm the Attorney General. You locked my kids in the clubhouse, I said slowly, pressing the phone to my ear with one hand while the other clenched the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Maybe next time you'll check the building before heading home for your wine and reality TV. Because what you just did, that's false imprisonment. And I hope you're listening, Linda, because I'm the Attorney General of this state. The line went silent for a moment, then a stifled gasp. That was when I knew the game had shifted. No more smug power plays, no more HOA meltdowns, and definitely no more locked doors. Linda had just started a legal battle with the worst person she could have crossed, and it all began with my kids being treated like they didn't matter. The day had started with nothing more chaotic than a lost sock and a spilled milk carton. It was a Saturday, and my two kids, Emma and Liam, were buzzing with excitement about a birthday party at the Willow Creek HOA Clubhouse. It was for their friend Sophie, a kind kid whose mom had rented the space for a few hours to host an indoor backyard bash. There were cupcakes, balloon animals, a magician who looked suspiciously like a retired postal worker, and a speaker blasting kid-friendly pop songs that grated on adult ears. The kids were in heaven. I dropped them off at noon, stayed to chat briefly, then headed to the store for groceries and supplies for our Sunday cookout. At around 3:45 p.m., my phone rang. Emma's voice was quiet, trembling, like she was hiding. "Dad," she whispered, "the party's over and everyone left, but the doors won't open. The lights are off, and we're still inside. Liam's trying to push open a window, but it's stuck." I froze in the middle of the canned goods aisle, my heart pounding so hard it drowned out the hum of the store. I asked where the adults were. She said they'd all gone, and the clubhouse manager, Linda, had announced it was closing time, flipped off the lights, and left. I asked about an emergency exit. Emma said it was chained and padlocked. My first instinct was to stay calm. My second was to move. I abandoned my cart, sprinted to my car, and broke at least 2 traffic laws racing to the Willow Creek Clubhouse, a squat brick building near the community's edge that always seemed to try too hard with its fake pillars and heavy oak door. I parked crookedly across 2 spaces and ran to the front. The door was deadbolt. I pounded on it, nothing. Circling to a side window, I could just make out 2 small figures huddled near a table littered with party debris. "Liam, wave," I shouted. A tiny hand shot up. I called Linda. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice oozing annoyance. "Yes, what do you want?" "You locked my kids in the clubhouse," I said. She sighed, like I was bothering her. "If they didn't leave with the other kids, that's not my problem." I closed at 4 o'clock. "It's policy." I kept my tone even. "You didn't check the building?" "I don't have time to chase every kid who hides in a corner. Maybe teach your brats to follow rules next time." That's when I dropped the bomb about being the Attorney General. I heard her sharp intake of breath before the line went dead. I called the Pinewood Police Department, gave a quick rundown, and was told a unit would arrive when available. That wasn't fast enough. I told Emma and Liam to step back, grabbed the emergency tool from my trunk, and attacked the back door's flimsy hinge. 3 kicks, a pry of metal, and the door splintered open. Emma and Liam stumbled into my arms, shaken but unharmed, like they'd just escaped a ghost story. As I led them to the car, a few neighbors gathered, drawn by the noise. An older man, Henry, who treated his lawn like a masterpiece, muttered, "Linda's been trouble since she got on the board." I said nothing, buckled the kids in, and called my assistant. "Document everything," I said. "This is now a legal case." 15 minutes later, a police cruiser pulled up. 2 officers approached, one skeptical, one curious. I introduced myself and handed over my card. The skeptical one glanced at it, then at me. "Oh," he said, straightening. They took my statement with sudden focus. One offered Emma and Liam Jr. officer stickers, which I declined, though Emma whispered it'd be nice to have proof she didn't break the door. Then Linda appeared, likely tipped off by a neighbor. She stormed over in a teal tracksuit, phone in hand like a weapon, shouting, "He vandalized Willow Creek HOA property. Arrest him." The skeptical officer turned to her and said dryly, "Ma'am, the Attorney General has authority to act in cases of unlawful detainment, especially involving minors. You should call your lawyer." Linda's mouth opened, then snapped shut, her face paling like she'd been slapped. "They're just kids," she stammered. "It was only a few minutes." The officer corrected her. It was over 40 minutes, based on the daughter's call log. They were locked in the dark, unaccounted for. "That's serious," the growing crowd murmured. Linda tried to leave, but the officer stopped her. "Ma'am, you need to answer some questions." That's when I knew this wasn't just a family matter anymore. It was the start of something bigger, and Linda was about to learn what happens when an HOA bully picks a fight with the wrong parent. Linda didn't go quietly. After her public embarrassment, the officers took her inside to give a statement. "I stayed by my car, letting Emma and Liam munch on granola bars and watch videos on my tablet. It felt surreal, like a bad TV show where the neighborhood villain finally gets caught. I hadn't planned to make this a spectacle, but Linda's arrogance had forced the issue. Her actions weren't just careless, they were illegal. And worse, they were personal, not because she targeted me, but because she endangered my kids in her twisted quest for control." As the officers left with key logs, security footage, and the clubhouse schedule, one muttered, "She's done." Later, I sat with my wife, Clara, recounting everything. She was calm, used to my job's legal chaos, but the idea of our kids trapped in a dark, locked building while Linda shrugged it off shook her. "She knew they were there," Clara said. I nodded. An officer had shown me a grainy clip, Linda passing a window where Emma was waving, either ignoring her or not caring. Both were unforgivable. The next morning, I filed a formal report, following protocol as I would for anyone. As Attorney General, I had tools but no intention of misusing them. Linda had handed me a case on a silver platter. My office launched a preliminary review for potential charges, from child endangerment to unlawful detainment. I also sent a letter to the Willow Creek HOA board, requesting an emergency meeting, not as a state official, but as a dad and resident. The Willow Creek HOA board had 6 members, but Linda had ruled them like a dictator for 4 years, winning re-elections because no one else wanted the job and she intimidated rivals. Her reign was shaky, though. I'd heard grumbles at block parties, residents fed up with her fines, snarky emails, and threats disguised as friendly notices. The board was exhausted. They just needed a push. Linda gave them one. 3 days later, I walked into the emergency Willow Creek HOA meeting. The community room was packed, over 60 residents filling the space. Linda sat at the head, in a lavender cardigan, clutching a binder like a lifeline, her eyes narrowing as I entered. No smile, just barely hidden disdain. She wasn't scared, yet she thought she could spin this. She opened with her usual monotone, "We're here to clarify confusion about clubhouse closure procedures." No harm was intended, and all policies were followed. The children chose to stay after the party ended. Staff secured the premises per standard protocol. Heads tilted. Linda went on, "The children weren't supposed to be there." I didn't interrupt. I wanted her to dig deeper. Vice President Walter, a retired architect who loved plaid vests, raised his hand. "Linda, you said staff secured the building, but weren't you the only one there?" She blinked, then nodded. "Yes, but as clubhouse manager, I am staff." Walter pressed, "So you locked the doors yourself?" Her voice sharpened. "Yes, per protocol. I'm not responsible for kids hiding." I stood, keeping my tone steady, avoiding my title. "I'm the father of the 2 kids Linda locked in the clubhouse. They didn't hide. They were visible through the window." My daughter called me, crying. Linda's own footage shows her passing them while locking up. The room buzzed. Linda snapped, "That footage is unclear. Those kids shouldn't have been there." I faced the crowd. They were at a registered birthday party. Per Willow Creek HOA rules, the manager must check the building before locking. It's in the manual. A woman asked, "Is that really a rule?" I smiled. Page 7, Clause 3.1. I checked yesterday. Walter added, "I've got the manual here." It's true. Linda paled. The meeting turned. Residents shared stories. A dog threatened with removal for howling, a garden uprooted for inconsistent flowers, a mom fined for her kids' sidewalk chalk. It was a floodgate opening. Linda tried to regain control, slamming her binder and accusing the room of a witch hunt, but it failed. When Mira, the board's treasurer and a local nurse, stood and called for a no-confidence vote, the room erupted in cheers. Linda stormed out, binder in hand, but the damage was done. That night, I sat with Emma and Liam, praising their bravery. Liam asked if Linda would go to jail. I said the law takes time, but she couldn't hurt anyone now. Emma asked if the clubhouse was safe again. I hesitated, then said, "Soon. We'll make sure it's run by better people." Outside, porch lights glowed across Willow Creek, like the neighborhood was exhaling. Linda had ruled by fear for years, but one reckless act made it personal. Now, the law was coming, quiet, precise, unstoppable. The fallout hit fast. While Linda tried to fade from view, the clubhouse incident grew into a formal investigation. What she thought was a minor issue had become a legal storm. I kept my personal anger separate from my duties, but ensured the process was thorough. The moment she locked that door without checking, she'd crossed a line she couldn't undo. My office referred the case to an independent ethics panel to avoid bias claims, while Pinewood Police got a warrant for all clubhouse footage, logs, and communications. Linda used a Willow Creek HOA-issued tablet for her duties, which logged emails, messages, and a calendar showing she'd locked up early multiple times, including a note about leaving Sundays to hit the wine bar before it gets crowded. None had caused harm until now, but with kids involved and footage backing their story, there was no escape. Linda tried damage control with a community email, full of fake remorse, calling it a misunderstanding and hoping for peace. It fell flat. Residents had seen the footage, heard the kids' story. Her words rang hollow. The community fought back, digging up old emails, notices, and logs. One resident posted on the Willow Creek app about her son being locked out of the clubhouse last spring when Linda closed early during a family event. No one had spoken up before, fearing Linda's petty fines for things like unapproved planters or messy lawns. Now, those fears faded. A local news outlet picked up the story after the meeting video went viral, showing Linda slamming her binder as neighbors shouted. The headline read, "Willow Creek HOA leader faces backlash for locking kids in clubhouse, Attorney General's children involved." It detailed her reign of intimidation with quotes from residents who'd felt silenced. Linda's reputation was shredded beyond Willow Creek. My office began a civil liability review. I didn't want money, just accountability, a record to follow Linda wherever she went. Then came the Willow Creek HOA audit, prompted by years of denied resident requests. Within days, it uncovered $15,000 in misused funds over 3 years, spa trips labeled community outreach, a gazebo in Linda's backyard billed as a shared space prototype, and takeout orders during her volunteer shifts. Missing receipts and shuffled accounts painted a clear picture. The board froze all discretionary spending pending a full probe. Linda tried to call it a smear campaign, but no one listened. Days later, her husband was seen loading boxes into their SUV. Rumors spread they were leaving Willow Creek. That was fine, she could run, but not from the law. I didn't need her shamed. I needed her to grasp that power comes with responsibility, not a free pass to treat kids like nuisances. I spoke with Sophie's parents, who felt guilty despite following all rental rules, assuming Linda would check the building. I reassured them. This wasn't about one party. It was about Linda's pattern of negligence meeting someone with the means to expose it. At home, life normalized, but the incident lingered. Emma checked doors obsessively. Liam kept a keychain flashlight in case someone locks me somewhere stupid again. We talked through fear, trust, and standing up to bad leaders, teaching them not all adults are right and sometimes those in charge need stopping. Linda's stunned face when she learned my title taught them more about consequences than any speech. By week's end, Linda was suspended from the Willow Creek HOA pending review. A special election was set to replace her, and the clubhouse closed for safety checks. I stayed back, not interfering. I didn't want to be a hero, just to ensure no kid ever had to call their parent from a dark, locked room again. Linda's silence was telling, no apology, just a retreat behind closed curtains and packing boxes. But the law wasn't done, with charges looming and audit findings growing. She'd learned that locking a door doesn't silence truth. It invites a storm that keeps knocking. The election to replace Linda brought Willow Creek together like never before. It wasn't just the usual retirees or rule lovers, young parents, new homeowners, even the quiet types showed up. Linda's reign had been a pressure cooker, and her clubhouse fiasco blew it open. People were angry but hopeful, believing change was possible. The Willow Creek HOA board, once an untouchable clique, was crumbling, and the tyrant everyone feared was fading into obscurity, one moving box at a time. Candidates included Sophie's mom, Rachel, a former principal, Mira, the treasurer who'd helped expose Linda, and Tom, a retired paramedic who fixed neighbors' fences for free. They weren't power-hungry, just folks wanting fairness. I stayed out of the race despite requests to run. My plate was full with state issues, and I had no desire to police mailbox colors. I attended debates, watched candidates handle tough questions, and offered quiet support. I didn't need to lead. I wanted the Willow Creek HOA to stop being a personal fiefdom. Days before the vote, Linda tried one last move, filing a complaint with the State Ethics Board, claiming I'd abused my power to target her. It was a wild distortion, omitting the footage, police report, and her financial misdeeds, painting her as a victimized volunteer. I didn't respond publicly, just sent it to my legal team. Within days, it was dismissed as baseless, with all my actions deemed lawful. Linda then leaned on a few loyalists, who parroted her political targeting claims at meetings. It flopped. Residents remembered her fines, threats, and the locked door. Her allies were drowned out. The audit results were a bombshell. Linda had misused $15,000, salon visits as wellness, personal furniture as community assets, and fake violation fines never approved by the board. Emails showed her mocking residents, calling one grandpa winner and another craft store crazy. The report, shared with every household, silenced her last defenders. Even Walter, once quiet under her rule, now openly criticized her bullying. Election night felt like a festival. Residents brought chairs, snacks, and campaign teas. When Mira won in a landslide, she took the mic, voice trembling. We reclaimed Willow Creek. Let's never go back to fear. The applause lasted a full minute, not just for her, but for a community that felt heard. The clubhouse, once Linda's fortress, became a symbol of renewal. A week later, Linda moved out. A moving truck arrived at dawn, and by dusk, her porch, once plastered with rule notices, was bare. I watched from my porch, coffee in hand, as she drove off without a glance. No goodbye, no apology, just tires on gravel. Her exit was closure enough. Inside, Emma and Liam were decorating cupcakes with Clara, bickering over frosting colors. Life was moving on. The Willow Creek HOA enacted swift changes, a transparent complaint system, with citations needing clear rules, evidence, and appeals, a volunteer committee to prevent one-person control, and annual third-party audits for board finances. Tom, the paramedic, cheered loudest at the audit rule, having once been fined $50 for early Halloween decor. The clubhouse reopened with better locks, brighter lights, and a community-driven vibe. One final encounter with Linda came indirectly. Days after her move, I got an anonymous email with a real estate listing screenshot. Linda's new home, under an LLC, was in a community with a voluntary, toothless HOA, no fines, just a gardening newsletter. She'd fled to a place where she couldn't wield power or fear. I archived the email and moved on. The kids didn't forget, though. At a Willow Creek picnic, Emma ran up with a glittery sign she'd made, "Safe for Kids." She taped it inside the clubhouse door, then joined Liam in a game of tag. I stared at the crooked, sparkly sign, messy, heartfelt, perfect. I hadn't needed drama or revenge, just peace. Thanks to two brave kids, angry neighbors, and unshakable truth, we had it. Life in Willow Creek settled into a new normal, upgraded by freedom. The clubhouse buzzed with volunteer-run events, movie nights, craft fairs, no fines attached. Clear, fair rules replaced Linda's vague threats. Neighbors smiled more, let their dogs linger on walks, let kids play longer without glancing over shoulders. Laughter returned, not just polite nods, but real joy in a place once suffocated. Emma and Liam carried small scars. Emma double-checked locks. Liam kept his flashlight handy. We didn't ignore it but talked through trust and safety, teaching them that bad leaders can be stopped with truth, not shouting. Linda's stunned face when she learned my role showed them consequences better than any lecture. Weeks later, the Pinewood County prosecutor filed charges: misdemeanor child endangerment, unlawful detainment, and misuse of funds. Nothing severe, but enough to mark Linda permanently. I attended the quiet, sterile court hearing, not for revenge, but to close the chapter. Linda sat stiffly, her professional blouse betraying her nerves. She pleaded no contest to 2 charges, accepting community service, ethics training, a public apology in the record, and a 10-year ban from HOA or civic roles. It was light but symbolic, her power was gone. When asked for a statement, I stood. My kids were scared and abandoned, something no parent should endure. This isn't about titles or grudges. It's about trust. Holding a key to a kid's space means responsibility heavier than any rulebook. Linda broke that trust. Willow Creek will heal, but her actions won't fade. She didn't look up. The judge nodded, the gavel fell, and it was done. Outside, I skipped reporters' questions. The story wasn't mine, it belonged to Willow Creek, to the mom fined for chalk, the couple whose wind chimes were banned, the man whose too bright mailbox sparked a citation. They tipped the scales. I just held the door for truth. At a Willow Creek potluck, the board surprised us with a ceremony. Emma and Liam got courage pins, tiny silver keys for their calm in crisis. A clubhouse plaque read, "For every child who teaches us safety and kindness trump rules." Clara snapped a photo of Emma beaming by it. Liam spun his pin like a trophy. That moment made every meeting, report, and careful step worth it. Peace for us, for every family Linda had bullied. The final twist came weeks later. A neighbor mentioned Linda's house was bought by someone from the Capitol. Then my deputy director, Mark, invited me to lunch, saying he'd closed on a new place. The address made me grin. Linda's old home, now owned by my colleague. Over sandwiches, he laughed. "I bought a disgraced HOA tyrant's house? You're coming to my barbecue." That summer, my team gathered their no-rule notices, just kids and sprinklers, burgers grilling, and laughter by the clubhouse. Linda's shadow was gone, replaced by accountability and community. As the sun set, Emma led a tag game, Liam launched a water rocket, and Clara nudged me. They'll tell this story one day, probably with extra drama. I smirked. Let them. As long as they know who to call when things go wrong. That's the lesson. Titles, rules, power mean nothing without care. It's not about being Attorney General. It's about being a neighbor who doesn't ignore a waving hand, a parent who shows kids that truth, spoken clearly, outshines any bully. Linda never returned, but Willow Creek came back stronger, and the clubhouse? It's got better locks, brighter lights, and Emma's sign. Kids welcome, always.